Hello folks. Welcome back to a new live stream, and we are here again with a new event for you. So, for those who are new and have joined recently and are looking to get started in open source, this is the event for you. So, we are hosting WeMakeDevs Open Source Fest, which is sponsored by Kestra. So, this is like a period or a program wherein you can contribute to Kestra, which is an open source project, a tool, orchestration tool, and the duration is from 14th of October to 3 November. All the details about this program or this fest can be found in the description below. So let's say if you are new to open source or if you're new to Kestra, you can join Kestra's Slack, which is there. So the link is there in the description. You can join it, and in the hashtag contributors channel, you can ask your questions on how to get started or if you're stuck somewhere. And if you, let's say, want to register for the event, you can find the link again to the WeMakeDevs page in the description below. All the necessary details about the event can be found in the description or in the page itself. So, we are giving away MacBook, iPad, and the best, let's say reward or prize which we have for this particular event is that you'll get an interview at Kestra if you are contributing good or if you have made a very good PR in the project, right? So I get asked a lot of time, how do we, let's say, get jobs or how do we get good interviews? This is the right, opportunity for you. Make good contributions, have good PRs into the project, and then after reviewing, if we feel that your PR is good, we'll help you with an interview at Kestra. I guess that's it for the event. Don't forget to check it out, and don't forget to join the Slack channel of Kestra. And here we have Will. Will from Kestra. Will, would you like to give yourself a quick introduction?
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for introducing the session. My name is Will. I'm a developer advocate at Kestra. And basically, my role is around helping orchestration be less confusing. Orchestration's a big loaded term. I didn't really fully understand what it meant before I joined Kestra, but that doesn't mean orchestration has to be difficult. And Kestra itself makes orchestration fun, you could say. And so hopefully today you'll be able to, one, maybe understand a little bit more about what orchestration is, but also about how open source can be super impactful and how getting involved in contributing to open source can be a really good stepping stone in your career.
Yeah. So I, Will, and whole Kestra team is excited for what you do. Will, I'll leave you, for the session, and maybe you can take over.
Excellent. Great. So the goal for today is I'm going to walk you through how you can effectively get started contributing to Kestra. Now, Kestra is a pretty cool project. Our team loves open source contributions. We really thrive on it. We're not one of those projects that's just open source because it looks cool. We really do welcome contributions from anyone and anywhere. So I'm going to walk you through how you can get yourself set up so that you can contribute, but also to help you figure out what type of contribution you should make. Now, first things that you should note is in our documentation, we do have a contribute to Kestra documentation page, along with a video that it's definitely worth checking out, because I am going to discuss some of the things in this video, but use that as a reference to come back to, because trust me, open source can be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be, and take your time. So I'm going to talk you through how you can get this set up in your local environment, how you can run this, because there's one thing, right? I can obviously go to any file inside of this repository and edit it in GitHub. And for some some changes, that's actually all that is needed. But some changes, which are a bit more nitty gritty, do require maybe adding some tests, maybe running the test suite that already exists to make sure that it still runs as expected. And in order to do that, you will need to have an environment locally. Now, Kestra is written in Java primarily. Our front end is Vue.js. So maybe you're someone who's written some Java before. Maybe you've written some Vue.js. And maybe you're new to both. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can't contribute to Kestra. There are plenty of other ways you can contribute. For example, We have documentation, and we actually have a documentation contribution guide too that tells you how to build the documentation locally, which again is using Vue.js, and then how you can contribute using Markdown files and some of the sort of things you need to know about getting things to render correctly. So if you wanted to maybe start off with a documentation change, then that is definitely a good suggestion. I am actually a big fan of these. Maybe I'm slightly biased being in DevRel, but I think if a product has documentation with errors, they can just be really confusing. And in fact, I remember it's going to be a really weird example, but a few years ago, quite a few years ago, back in sort of the early 2020s, I had a laptop that, no, this was 2019. I had an Asus laptop that had a fingerprint scanner, and I was using Ubuntu on the laptop, which meant the fingerprint scanner didn't work just like natively, which was annoying because I really liked using it in Windows. And I found a driver on GitHub for it, and I thought, oh, this is cool. So I tried to get it set up and installed, but the installation instructions in the README were slightly wrong. There was a typo in it. And once I banged my head against a wall for a while and figured out that there was a typo, and it wasn't just I was doing something wrong, but I figured out what the problem was. I made a quick PR just to fix one single line. And hopefully that means the next person who comes along to try and use that won't be banging their head against a wall for half an hour, and instead will be able to run the project. So this that's a good example of like an impactful contribution. Because trust me, if I, let's say another version of me had come beforehand and made that change, I'd be very grateful. So documentation, definitely very, very valuable, and definitely not something to sort of dismiss. And the cool thing about documentation with Kestra is on every page, you'll see there's this little edit this page. I'll just zoom in a little bit. You'll see, you can't see it now because I've zoomed in too much, but you can see there's this little edit this page button. And when you click that, it brings you straight to that page in the documentation on the edit. So you can easily just modify a typo or maybe something that's an example that's incorrect. Because, for example, examples do often get broken where we are constantly making changes, things get deprecated, and there's one example deep in the docs that we don't necessarily spot. These are great places to be able to make changes and make impactful contributions that, one, are quite easy to test because you can test that the workflow example runs by just running Kestra locally, and you can do that by using the quick start guide to run Kestra using this one-line Docker command. So you'll see here, in about 60 seconds, if you run this command, you'll be able to run Kestra using a locally stored database. So really simple, but great for being able to just test workflows without having to fully set up Kestra. And then you can be happy that works, make a pull request. It's quite easy for us to test because we can easily just run that in a preview environment. Once we're happy, we can give that an approve. And before you know it, you've made a contribution to open source. And some of those contributions can be super, super powerful. Another type of contribution that we've had, so we talked about sort of code ones, and we'll go back to that. Don't get me wrong, we're going to come back to that, but that's going to take a little while to discuss. And we talked about documentation, which again can be pretty impactful. Key things there being sort of code examples that might be slightly wrong or could be improved. Or another one is broken links. Things get moved around, redirects don't exist. If something seems off, there's a good chance it probably is off. Open an issue, come chat with us. Something else that's worth mentioning as well is inside of the Kestra Slack, which you can join by going to kestra.io/Slack. We've actually got a contributions channel too, contributors channel, I should say. So the idea is you can come in here, you can ask about, you can see there's a few people who are asking about getting set up with being able to contribute to Kestra. If you have any questions, you can either ask them directly on the GitHub issue that you maybe want to contribute to, or you can ask them in this Slack channel. Myself and the team try and do our best to keep an eye on this. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on that as this is a great place to get help. The main takeaway from all of those sort of different ways you can contribute is you don't have to do it alone. We are here to help. And in fact, there's very few contributions that people make where we don't have to, where we're not involved. Often we have to help because with a code base as large as Kestra's, we've got a lot of context that you don't have. And that can often make it difficult to start. But by asking questions to us, the team, we can point you in the right direction. Perhaps the bit you're looking for isn't even in the same repository, because a project like Kestra, for better or for worse, is split between a lot of repositories. And in fact, if I just search plugin here, you'll see that there are a lot of different repositories for the project. So some of these plugins might have bugs and you might not know where to look, but we can point you in that direction. So don't feel that you guys have to figure it out on your own. Now, I'm just going to have a quick look at the chat before we jump into the next bit. I can see people are asking to know which framework is Java is used in Kestra for the backend. We use Micronaut for running Kestra. So if you're interested in contributing via that sort of way, then we very much welcome it. And someone also goes, apart from Vue.js, do you guys use Nux? We definitely use Nux for the website. The website, for context, is hosted under Docs. So the Docs repo is actually just the entire website, and that all uses Nux. I believe we're on Nux 3 now, but I could be wrong. And that was a relatively recent thing. So yeah, if that's something that you want to contribute to, then definitely check out the issues. That's definitely a great place to have a look. I'm not going to talk about which issues you should look at and which ones you shouldn't. I will do that next week in one of the future webinars. So if you're interested to learn about how to figure out which issues are good to start with and not good to start with, then I'd recommend checking that out. But the TLDR is look out for that good first issue label. I'm going to zoom in a bit more there. This filters by all the issues that we think could be good first issues. Obviously depends on your background. So for example, we've had someone interested in adding a Coolify or Dockdeploy guide for Kestra. So maybe that's something you could contribute to both their repositories, but also ours, because if you have a look at my attempts of doing this, where I spent very little time doing it, you make a PR to submit sort of a template to their repository, and then also you then add something to our website to say you can run it on Coolify or Dockdeploy if you want. Someone asked the questions, when setting up a plugin locally, how do we make sure it's using the Kestra Java SDK instead of the core Kestra classes? That's a very good question. That's a little bit more nitty gritty and a better one to sort of ask our backend dev. So I'd recommend joining our Slack community and asking that in the contributor channel. Now, what I can tell you, though, about running a plugin locally, which is something I often do, let me just grab my VS Code instance. I don't have a VS Code instance at the moment, but if I was to have a VS Code instance, I'm just going to stop screen sharing for a second, just so I can make sure I'm not about to reveal anything I shouldn't be revealing. And I definitely was about to reveal a load of secrets, so let's just close all of that for just a brief second. Okay. So I'm going to re-screen share now that I'm not going to reveal all of my Kestra secrets to the world. There we go. So inside of here is my Kestra setup. It's a bit messy, but what you can see here is I've cloned the repositories for these plugins, and then using the command, which you can see, ooh, that's not very nice. Using the command /gradlew and then shadow jar, it will then build me a .jar that I can then use, and then I can put it in a plugins folder that then my Kestra instance will use. And I'm just running Kestra using this executable here, Kestra-1.0.4, and it then just uses these jars. So that's one way that you can write code. So if you wanted to test this, one way you could do it is if I wanted to make changes to the Git plugin, I could make it directly to here. I could then build it, put it in the plugins folder, and then I can test any of those changes directly inside of Kestra. This is something I quite often do with our plugin team, where I might identify a bug in the process of making content, and then I can get the latest changes and build them locally rather than having to wait for a release cycle. So you could do the same yourself. If you discover a bug, you can build them locally using this sort of workflow, add them to the plugins directory, and then you can go ahead and run Kestra locally. So I'd recommend checking out on the website. That is this way. That's going to the installation guide and then going to standalone server. That will walk you through how you can get yourself set up, both with with an executable, but also by getting yourself set up with running it locally. So we'll add some more information to this page because it definitely needs a little bit more, but doing things like Kestra server standalone will get you set up. Someone says they're working on a JDBC plugin. That's very cool. I'd love to understand a little bit more about what you're doing. We've got a load of things inside of our JDBC plugin, so a lot of people already use it. So great place to get started. Definitely recommend. As you can see, lots of things are supported using the JDBC driver in Kestra. So lots of things to contribute here. As you can see, loads of issues, a lot of them with the good first issue. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're doing there. Okay. I'm going to walk you through how you can run Kestra locally so that you can start contributing. Now, Kestra has obviously got two parts to it. We've got the front end and the back end. And again, there are instructions under getting started and contribute to Kestra to running these. So I would recommend that you go down and read these as you try and get yourself set up. So let's go and have a little look at these. So you can get it all set up with IntelliJ, or you can use VS Code. Our team uses IntelliJ internally. I'm going to show you how you can get set up in VS Code using dev containers. Now, if you're not familiar with dev containers, what dev containers enable is it allows you to effectively spin up VS Code inside of a Docker container. So you'll see in a second, it's going to prompt me to turn this VS Code instance to be running inside a Docker container that's running an image that has all the dependencies I need for running Kestra. So I'm going to tell it to reopen in that container. What we're going to see, I'm going to ask it to stop telling me to connect it to update. But the idea here is now I haven't got to go and install the correct version of Java or the correct version of Vue.js or whatever. Now Kestra is running nicely without the need for me to install those things because it's done it using a Docker file, which is great. That definitely saves a lot of hassle. We can see under dev containers a lot more information on that Docker file. You can see that it's installing a number of things, primarily Java SDKs. I know, not a huge shock really, but this just takes the headache of trying to get the right version of Java installed and get that all set up. And then once that's set up, you can now run Kestra locally, which means you can make changes and rerun it without having to set up the environment yourself. I've done a full video on this, so I'd highly recommend that you take a look at that video, as I do walk through it in quite a lot of depth, so it can help you get set up and then you can make changes to various bits. Just something that can help you help take the friction off. Because the thing I always find really annoying about open source is you think you can make a change, you think you understand how to do it, but you've got no idea how you can actually test that you're doing it correctly. And understandably, maintainers don't love it when you contribute a PR that doesn't have any sort of tests or any sort of proof that it might work. You know, you've just pushed a commit and gone, yeah, that might work. It might hopefully work. That's where the dev containers really help. So here we can see it's initiating my Java environment down at the bottom here, and it's opening the Java project. This can take a little while, which is why I'm not going to show this off in too much detail right now, because it can take a little while. But as you can see here, and I can actually put this into the preview mode like so. Like so, you can see it tells you how you can get everything set up, the different settings you can run as well. So definitely would recommend checking this out. I'm going to go back to the repository for a second. We've got a question from someone that asks, how many things do we need to set up? This is my first time, and I want to be able to see meaningful open source contributions. So I'm actually going to walk you through an example of a meaningful open source contribution that I had recently. I'm going to demo it next week as well. So definitely follow the Kestra YouTube channel if you'd like to see this again in more detail. So here it is. So we discovered this bug. Well, I say we, I mean someone else discovered this bug. Someone mentioned it to me. I think it was Kunal, actually, of all people. We were on a call. He uses Safari, and he noticed that we had our social icons vertically. Now, you might think, this isn't a particularly impactful contribution because it's just icons, but it looks a bit weird, and we didn't know it looked a bit weird, but it's a very easy fix. And the other thing to factor in, this is the thing that people see first time they look at any of our repositories. So of course we want to get this fixed. So we had someone who wanted to have a go at doing it. I then cleaned up their contribution to look a little bit better. And as you can see, further down, they did get it sorted, but then we realized that every other repository had the same issue. So that's where we ended up creating another issue to track all of this. And then we had people come and, contribute PRs to all of the different repositories until we were able to automate the process, because there's a lot of repositories and it would take a long time. So we ran a script to do it for the rest. But this was a great opportunity to make a change that now, if I go to the repository, I am using Chrome. But if you're using Safari, these icons look like this rather than in vertically. And all it was just a few lines of code. And it doesn't have to be a lot of code. It just needs to look like this, right? We're just adding a few lines of code to be able to solve the problem. And that is enough to be an impactful contribution. A few other impactful contributions that we've seen include we've got a load of new plugins. Kestra is always wanting to look at new plugins. And we've had someone here contribute a Stripe plugin to Kestra. So if you want to maybe get your hands a little more kind of hands-on with Kestra, then you can work with our plugin team to contribute a plugin. Now, this might be a little bit easier doing the plugins because the plugin itself is its own thing. So you haven't got to try and figure out how logic works with the core part of Kestra. But at the same time, you're now defining things from scratch. So there's sort of perks to both, right? Perk is like if you're contributing to Kestra itself, then it's you might just be contributing a tiny little bit that's going to make a big change, but it might be more complicated to get started because there's a lot to understand. Whereas this, you're working with effectively an empty repository that's got the template set up, but otherwise you have to define a lot of logic. So there might be more code required to change here. As you can see, quite a few changes were made in this repository, but you might feel this is a more impactful one. So that's just another example. And my understanding is we've got a load of new plugins on the way. I can scroll down and show you some of those. So we've got N8N and Dagster plugins. So you can, if you've got those set up as well, you'll be able to interact with them via Kestra. If I just search by plugin, my understanding, we also have, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that we've recently added. I know that Todoist was recently added. That might already be added, that one. Yeah, that one looks like it might already be done potentially. Or that this, yeah, looks like there's someone here has contributed to do it, so that's pretty cool. Just because, and that's the other thing, you don't necessarily have to contribute the whole plugin. You could contribute parts of it, individual tasks, because it can be a lot to go ahead and contribute an entire plugin. So just focus on one task at a time. That's where maybe after one task you feel comfortable to doing another, and any change is better than no change. What's the best way to pick a good first issue in Kestra? I would probably suggest, well, first of all, going to the Kestra repository, which I have open here, filtering the issues by good first issues is a really good first step you can take. Have a look to see if there's anything that feels like something you could contribute. Maybe you'd prefer to work on the front end side. Maybe you'd prefer to work on the back end. So you can also filter by front end as well. So you can add label there. If I put good or label good for, I'm really bad at GitHub issues. Good first. There we go. So here you've got good first issues and front end. I think you can also just tick them from here too. You don't have to type them out. Maybe you don't want to do front end. Maybe you want to do more back end side. Let's have a look at that. So here you can see a bunch of different issues. This one here has just changed the icon. That's a relatively straightforward one. As you can see, this icon has not been rendered properly. So all you've got to do is comment that you'd like to be assigned, and then try and make a PR. And as you can see, someone here has in fact made a PR to solve this problem. So just an example there to help you get started. How would we check our commits working as expected? Now, this is where it's some of the examples. People write tests, they add extra tests to existing tests. So if you're using, let's say, the Todoist plugin, for example, if we go back to that, under source and then under tests, you can add some unit tests to show that they are working as expected. As you can see, this plugin is so new, doesn't have any tests. But yeah, that's a good place to get started. Another thing, sometimes if it's something that you would see by using Kestra, then you could run a workflow that you can. A lot of issues will have reproducers, and so they'll say run these workflows, and they won't work because of the bug. You can then make your change and then run it locally, and you'll see if that bug has gone by running that reproducer. That's another thing you can do too. Someone says, how can you tell me more repos which are open source? Yes, of course. So pretty much all the Kestra ones are open source. We have a few sort of enterprise specific ones which are not open source, but they are very few compared to the crazy amount of ones that are open source. So factor that in. And then other ones you can look at as well. So this is a thing that people do quite often is I can never remember how to do it. I'm just going to search GitHub trending. But you can go to trending repositories on GitHub, and then you can see what's trending for today, for this week, this month. And Kestra quite often appears in here. Should we see if Kestra has turned up on the today one? No, I think it's under this month though. No, sad times. But we often quite pop up on here. We can see you can contribute to OpenAI Codex, for example. My main takeaway from all of this, though, is that you should pick repositories that are smaller than bigger. The bigger the repository, the cooler it might seem to contribute, but the harder it will be to understand how to contribute to it. Maintainers there might not be able to give you as much support as you might find on a smaller project. So I definitely would hunt out smaller projects, or in the Kestra sense, looking for those plugin repositories that have little bugs. So I'm actually going to show you an example of a bug that I've been working with recently in the plugin FS repository. I've been working with our SSH task, and there's a few different issues here that are relatively straightforward, things that need to be investigated, and they're relatively isolated. They don't really interact with anything outside of the task themselves. So this can be a good place to have a look as the plugin repositories, have a look at the issues they have. Some of these can be really straightforward. So for example, this one here, I just want this to be renamed to this because this property is actually looking for a file, not a directory. So it is a misleading name, which is why it's looking for the path to the config. Just a simple fix, right? And we can see someone here is going to ask for them to be unassigned, but this one's currently open. If you want to have a go at this one, then maybe have a go at this one. I will be curious to see if anyone jumps on that one. Someone says, thanks. It's crazy to see how trending repos are floating over GitHub. Good place to match to my skill and start contributing. Exactly. I can't speak for other repositories. Every project has their own different community and maintainers, but there are a lot of good projects out there who are willing to help, willing to support people. So definitely join their Discord or Slack community. Look at their getting started. A lot of repositories, as you'll see with Kestra as well, they do have, if I go to Kestra and then we scroll down, is it under here? Oh, it'd be under the .github probably. We have a contributing guide on what you want to do, how to get set up. So again, look out for this contributing.markdown file. It's definitely a good place to start and help you figure out, is this repository a good fit for me and my skills, or is it a bad fit? The plugin Todoist was only created 4 days ago. Yeah, a lot of these, we've got a whole list of repositories that have just been made. They've got nothing to them yet, right? Like if you want to contribute to them, then take a look. You can filter on the organization by repositories and ones that have just been added. Another one as well to, how many times can Will say plugin in the stream? Quite a few times. Another thing to do as well is I've lost my trail of thought now. Is only assign yourself to one issue at a time. That's another thing to factor in too. It can be, you might see a bunch of issues that sound good, but it can be frustrating to a maintainer to see someone go, I'll do all of these, when there's a bunch of keen people who are also willing to help. And the reality is, you can't contribute to them all at the same time. Even if you do them quickly, just assign yourself to one at a time. And do it that way. It makes the maintainer happier, and you're probably going to be more successful focusing on one thing at a time. Once you're done, though, there's nothing stopping you going and getting yourself assigned to another one. But don't hog all of the issues. Let's let everyone have a chance.
I guess folks, we are about time, but I'll take few last questions. Right. Well, I'm not sure if you have taken this question. It's by Archana. Let me know if you have taken it. We can skip that. I just wanted to confirm the task add a new trigger to detect stuck or misconfigured schedule triggers means we are creating a new plugin trigger, right?
Add a new trigger. Let's have a look. Where's this? I probably showed it on the screen, but I didn't actually read it myself. Add a new trigger. Was this something we saw? Add a new. I don't see it. The reality for this issue and that you described is, if it's a dedicated issue, chat with the team. Ask whoever created the issue if that's what they want. That's the beauty of this, right? There's no point assuming and wasting time. If you want further clarification, because I am definitely guilty of writing bad issues where I just quickly write down, I had a bug, I'll come back and fix this, and then I never actually come back and fix this. So what I would recommend is ask for further clarification. Do you want this to be a new trigger? If so, where would you like it? And that can just save a lot of headaches. The key thing about contributing to open source isn't really the code contributions, it's the communication skills you gain from it.
And I would say if you are, if you are a part of this particular event, be like Falky. So he has already started contributing to an issue, and this is what we have to do as well. Well, I just have two last questions for you, right? And I personally want to ask this particular question because I would like to know what you would have to say for this.
Okay.
So I just wanted to understand what makes Kestra as an exciting project for new contributors out there. So let's say if I am someone who is sitting out there in open source and I want to contribute to a new project, why should I choose Kestra?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The thing that's cool about Kestra is it's a tool that you might not really appreciate why you might want it to use it. I didn't really when I first heard of the product. I was like, what does Kestra really do for me? Because Kestra, orchestration tool, what does that really mean? Before I joined Kestra, I was running Python scripts in cron jobs because I just needed them to run like 8 times a day. And I had no idea if they broke, and I had no way of really managing it. And it was annoying. Tools like Kestra would have made that a lot easier and done it in a very easy way, because Kestra doesn't target itself as only for data or only for DevOps or only for this. Kestra is, if you want to automate things, Kestra is a tool for that. And I think that that works for both big companies and enterprise settings, but also for people running home labs. And I think that's what makes Kestra a really cool project, is it's sort of got something for everyone. And the other thing as well is, I feel like because it's a relatively new project in the great scheme of projects, and we're moving fast, there are things that break. And I love the fact that the team is so willing to get things fixed. If you make a PR, you won't be waiting months and months and months before it gets merged, which I have personally experienced when contributing to projects where I've seen bugs. I get an email from GitHub like months later to go, oh, we merged your PR, or they've left a comment. And at that point, I've already forgotten why I did it. And the PR is probably going to get closed and it's never going to get merged. And that's the worst feeling about open source, is you feel like you're trying to make a change and then the project doesn't care. And then you just go, well, what's the point? Kestra's not like that. And that's what I love about this project is we love contributions. We can see the impact it has on people. And you can see your impact in the product, whether it's a typo or a UI bug. You'll see it and people will talk about it.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you will even since you have mentioned now, I even remember how many like replies I get on the PRs which I made back in year, or let's say a couple of years back, and I probably don't remember what I had done there.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, if the product has had lots of commits being pushed since your PR might be completely stale at that point. Maybe the change got fixed somewhere else, and you go, "Well, what was the point of me making a PR to fix it if someone was just going to push the change themselves anyway?" It's like, you're open source, but are you really open source? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just have a last question for you. Since we have 100 plus folks watching us, and they'll like most of them will be making PRs shortly, or if there are some smarters, like let's say smarter than me or smarter than you, they might have already made it. So, what are some, let's say, two or three do and don'ts of how should we make a PR, or how should someone make a PR to get started, get that merged?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The key things we like to look for when you specifically make the PR. So let's say you've made a change. Maybe let's say it's a documentation change because that's relatively straightforward to validate. Um, don't do what me and AJ, our technical writer, do. I'll show you an example. um, AJ actually did write something here, but usually there is. It's usually no description provided, and I go read through it. Usually it's fine and I approve it. Sometimes there's things that need changing, but that's just what we do. That is not a good example of how you should contribute to open source. What you should be putting, and I can show you the social icons one, right? Is you should be putting in those PRs, and I can put in here, this is the PR, right? This PR references the issue it's solving. That is the biggest pain point we often find is people go, I've got a PR that's fixing something. And we're like, what is it fixing? We don't know what it's fixing. Linking the PR will automatically connect it to the issue, which helps both us when we're looking at the issues to see someone has tried to make a change. And also when we look at the PR to understand what it's for solving, because projects hate it when you just make a change for the sake of it. It needs to be solving a problem, and it's best to open it as an issue first before making a PR. So link that. Also, put a screenshot in to show that like it's working. So here, there's me showing that the Safari change had fixed the icons, and the old change was like that. This is another good example of what you should do. Maybe that could be showing like a screenshot of it running in Kestra and that bug disappearing, or adding a screen recording. I quite often add screen recordings to videos. You can easily just add them directly in as the MP4 video directly into GitHub, and GitHub will upload it. So no need to faff around. But yeah, that's my pro tips for how to actually write the pull request itself once you've got the change. Don't be afraid to add extra detail as well to explain why you've done it. But just don't leave it like this.
Yeah, and trust me, no one would have explained better than this, because the no description move which will pulled out, that's the most you can see. So make sure you follow all the right guidelines and making the PRs, because make it, I would say, make it actually easy for reviewer to understand what you are trying to do actually there, right? Because that will help them understand the issue better and your contribution better. I guess that's it. There is one last announcement for you folks. Since we have again 100 plus folks watching, if you are watching the stream right now, star Kestra, right? Take a screenshot and make sure you post it on socials so that we know that okay, you have done it the right way. So make sure you post it on socials. Tag WeMakeDevs, tag Kestra, right? And we have a special 10 shirt giveaways for you folks, and that is by WeMakeDevs. So we have cool shirts waiting for you. If you just start it, share on social, and tag WeMakeDevs Kestra. Yes, I guess that's it. That's it for this webinar, and we'll be seeing you for a couple of more webinars. I guess there are 5 more left, if I'm not wrong. It will be next week and next week. So we'll be in touch with you folks through webinar, space, and whatnot. If you are new again to the stream, we are running a WeMakeDevs Open Source Fest program, wherein we are asking folks to contribute to Kestra, and Kestra is the sponsor for the program. And all the relevant links to join Kestra's Slack and ask questions is in the description below. and all the information about the program or information about the fest can be found in WeMakeDevs page, which is also there in the description. Or maybe you can just search about WeMakeDevs/hackathon/open source fest. Yes, that's it. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Will. Any closing remarks do you have?
Yeah, just remember to give Kestra a star on GitHub. It helps us out a lot. And I am going to give a shout out to the YouTube channel. Make sure to come and subscribe to the YouTube channel for Kestra. Helps us out a lot too. We're getting pretty close to 4,000 subscribers. So that'd be pretty cool to hit before the end of the year.
And the folks who are wondering how you will find the YouTube, just go to Kestra's website. You will find it there. Everything is
perfect.
There. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.